Aditya Birla Group presents Budget 2015, the Make in India Budget, co-presented by SBI. What the world wants.
Typically, before the budget, we ask a bunch of opinion makers and expert India observers from across the world what the world is expecting from India, from the Indian budget, and of course from the Indian economy as well. Joining me now is a veteran India observer and author of some seminal books, Sanjeev Sanyal, Global Strategist and Managing Director at Deutsche Bank. Good morning, Sanjeev. Good to have you with us. Well, India received a goodish bit of money last year from the global community, 16 billion, not the best in terms of run rate, but fairly decent. Do you think India is still up on the radar of global investors?
Absolutely. I think India looks very good. There is an amazing opportunity here for India to really go up into the next level. And so I think the world is watching. They will watch the budget very closely, of course. But it's not just about announcing intentions. Step-by-step implementation of some of these measures is important. But I think on the whole, given what happened with the coal auction, for example, diesel deregulations before that, so I think by and large people are beginning to feel that, slowly but steadily things are getting implemented.
Okay. Is there any investor ennui or tiresomeness on the part of investors that things are not moving at a fast clip? I mean, for no fault of the government, they are not able to implement some crucial legislation. As well, there has not been any dramatic action on the ground. I mean, witness PSU banks, their capitalization, a host of areas where work has not been done. Is there any investor ennui about it?
Well, I mean, people will always complain that things are not happening fast enough. As I mentioned, several interesting things have already happened, as the coal auction, diesel deregulation. In fact, not many people are paying attention, but a serious cleanup is happening with all these internal corruption and espionage cases. So things are happening. I think there could be one thing that could happen from the budget is not just the fiscal, but providing some sort of a roadmap against which people can measure progress. I think that would be very helpful, because that would allow people to gauge how fast the progress has been made and what is the direction in which people are getting. So some sort of clarity on that front would be much appreciated. Okay,
actually, let me address that question straight away, which is the purpose of this interview. What exactly are foreign investors and people like you expecting the budget to deliver?
Well, I wouldn't know about expectations, but these are the following things I would like. One is a serious and radical simplification of the tax structure. India has one of the most complicated tax systems in the world. A radical simplification would be much appreciated. It would not just simplify and make business easier to do, but also it would mean that the focus would shift from squeezing the few people who actually pay taxes and shift it towards broadening the tax net. So I think that would be an important step. Secondly, I think simply the way that the budget is presented could be improved. It's a very opaque document. You have all these plan and non-plan expenditures. Nobody really understands what is the real difference between them. We have gotten rid of the Planning Commission. We now need to get rid of that whole thinking process and tell people clearly exactly where things are getting spent. And I think finally one big important step would be to, as I said, not just focus on the fiscal, but provide a broader roadmap of, the broader economic agenda.
All right, I'll come back to you for more details at this point in time. Jim Walker, the Managing Director of Asianomics, is also joining us, a long-time veteran India watcher. Well, Jim, good to have you with us today on this show. Tell us, since we are in pre-budget mode, what are your expectations? What will be the 1, 2 or 3 numbers or points that you will look out for in the budget?
I kind of wonder when India is not in pre-budget mode. It seems to be in pre-budget mode from one budget to the next, but it is such a big feature of the economy every year, which worries me. I must admit that so much emphasis is placed on a 2-hour speech, and so much expectation is built up every year around about it. I mean, to be quite honest, what I'm looking for is pretty much steady as you go. I really don't want the government to be thinking along any revolutionary lines or anything spectacular. I think we all know that GST is going to probably be a feature of this government's budget announcement. There's going to be commitment to fiscal consolidation, which I think would be a major positive. And there will be, I think, a lot more emphasis on capital spending and infrastructure spending than we saw in previous governments. These are the kinds of things that I would be looking for, but I don't really want them to be doing too much.
What about the fiscal deficit number itself, Jim? The given timetable to the government is that it should be 4.1% this year and 3.6% next year, FY16. Would it worry you if they reneged on that?
I don't think they need to. I think, budgets are always a bit of a... In fact, your previous guest was saying they're opaque. And to be quite honest, they're a bit of a game. You can add revenues here and reduce expenditures there, and you can usually get the number that everybody's looking for. What I would very confidently predict for fiscal year 2016 is that the budget will be met and exceeded in terms of the fiscal downside. In other words, that they might set 3.6% of GDP as the target, and they'll achieve closer to 3, or maybe even below that. And the reason for that is purely on the revenue side, and the fact that India by that time will be motoring. I know you've got GDP numbers that are now telling you that the Indian economy is booming already. I think I've got some problems with the GDP numbers. But I think through the course of 2015 into 2016, we'll see significant acceleration in the Indian economy, and therefore significant acceleration in tax revenues. We're looking at a very positive environment for the fiscal consolidation plan over the course of the next 5 years.
Okay, that's positive. In fact, a lot of people were worried that last year the government assumed a 19% growth in revenues, partly because of a higher assumed tax buoyancy, which didn't materialize. But, well, this year, if you think that tax buoyancy can be assumed, that'll be a big relief. But do you agree, Sanjeev Sanyal, with this? First of all, would the 3.6 number be very sacred for you? As well, do you think that this time the government can take the liberty of higher tax revenue expectations?
I think, first of all, the number 3.6 is not that sacred. I mean, obviously, you don't want a huge, miss. But, a small miss on either side is not a very big deal. I think there are a few things that provides a bit of a buffer for the government. One of them is that although it's not really the government arena but the reserve banks, but I think there is a scope here for reducing the cost of capital radically. One of the reasons you have this large deficit is simply that the interest cost of debt. And I personally think that right now there is a scope for bringing down interest rates quite dramatically, which the biggest beneficiary of that will obviously be the government. There are, of course, even second-round effects from the fact that the corporates will then also pay higher taxes and so on. But directly, the government will benefit from this. So I think some thought needs to be put into how to bring down the cost of capital, and that would, again, provide a fair amount of cushion to the government to do other things and also to bring down the deficit.
Okay. There are some economists who keep telling us that they would be okay with a higher fiscal deficit over 3.6%, provided the revenue deficit and the primary deficit show a definite decline. Any thoughts on that, Sanjeev?
As I said, that exact number is not sacred to me. It really, it does matter how that deficit is being arrived at. And of course, if it is coming from, major investments and capital expenditure, it's always good, because that would suggest that you are investing into the future, and presumably the economy generally and the government will generate revenues out of that. So yes, it matters quite a great deal how that the mix that of spending and taxes that generates that deficit does matter a lot. Yes.
All right. Well, we have to take a mandatory break, but a lot more questions to Jim Walker and Sanjeev Sanyal on what the world expects from India.
Aditya Birla Group presents Budget 2015, the Make in India Budget, co-presented by SBI. What the world wants.